Maria Hinojosa received the Edward R. Murrow Lifetime Achievement Award at the 2024 Washington State University Murrow Symposium. NWPB's Tracy Dial sat down with her for this interview.
Maria Hinojosa, an award-winning journalist, here on the Palouse to accept your latest award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts about the Palouse?
So I didn't know what was the Palouse, but then I got a description of it. So I'm so glad to be at the Palouse. And the Cougs. So yay. I'm not, I don't know a lot about sports. So I made a mistake last night and I said, go Cougars. And they were like, no. So.
I mean, technically correct, and as a journalist on First Reference, you would.
Oh, well, thank you.
Right?
Thank you on First Reference then. Thank you. Thank you. But I'm having a great time. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us, taking this time to be with Northwest Public Broadcasting. I do have a question as a journalist. Do you have a favorite question in interviews?
You know what? I don't have a favorite question. I really approach every interview with like the kind of excitement and curiosity of something new that's going to happen. So there's not one question that I'm going to ask everyone, although there is an ending question, which frankly, since the pandemic has really become kind of more essential for me, which is, so how do you find joy? What do you do in your life that keeps you in the spirit, that helps you with every day? I don't ask it to everybody, but I do like that question, and I learn, which is what I like, to learn and have it impact my own life.
It's important to find the joy. How do you find joy then?
So for me, I find joy, I meditate. I'm a pretty big meditator, and also as a journalist, I made fun of that at first. I was like, haha, I'll never be able to meditate. I've been meditating pretty much every day since 2016. So that brings me just a sense of calm, as it were. I'm a boxer, so I find joy in working out, boxing with my trainer and my friends out in the park in New York City. I also love working out and lifting weights and just kind of doing that. That brings me a lot of joy. I've become a birder since the pandemic, just a little bit, but I can identify birds here and there through sound, and nature in general is something that really brings me a tremendous amount of just, a sense of gratitude of being alive and being with my family. Not doing anything brings me a lot of joy. Just kind of being chilled, being with my family, not having a million things to do makes me very happy.
Lots of pretty birds on the Palouse, Maria.
I did not bring I can't believe it, I didn't bring my binoculars.
We could get you a pair, don't worry.
Okay, it's a little bird watching here.
Yeah. I think it's important as a journalist to be able to calm your mind. We're such busy bodies in our head. So you've been in media for a very long time. You've seen it change a lot. What is the difference between public media and commercial media from your perspective?
That's an interesting question, which is giving me time to think about how I'm going to answer that. So public media, public media has really evolved in many ways. When I first started in public media, it was actually not diverse at all. I was the first Latina at NPR headquarters to be hired in editorial. That was 1985. So obviously, public media has matured. They've understood the importance of what I was saying way back when, which is you have to have diversity in your newsroom, otherwise you're not practicing excellence in journalism. And I would think on the commercial side, there's been a lot of historical pressures that have happened in our society, whether it's 9/11, whether it's the murder of George Floyd, whether it's the pandemic, that has had an impact in Me Too, the Me Too movement. This has definitely impacted commercial media, public media as well, but in terms of commercial media, you've actually seen an effect. Things are different than when they were being run when I first started in commercial news organizations. The culture has changed, but we're facing all kinds of different problems now that we weren't facing then. For example, mis and disinformation, the use of propaganda, AI, the pushing of news that is based on lies, So we have particular challenges in our modern society. But, you know, Edward R. Murrow, the reason why I'm here, he was saying, you know, television is going to be a problem. He was actually quite dark in terms of his expectations of what could happen. I worry, but I'm not going to go dark, because Edward R. Murrow thought that everything was going to just go black in a very negative way, and you know, it hasn't been that. There's a lot of gray, and there's a lot of movement and positivity. So I remain eternally hopeful for our American journalism.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point. You have been so impactful on the industry. So newsrooms really should reflect our communities, and we're a diverse country, we're a diverse region, even for us at Northwest Public Broadcasting. So how do newsrooms do that? How do we reach out to a more diverse, younger journalistic crew?
By hiring them. You have to have young, diverse people in your newsrooms, and that's going to be the natural. So there's not like, oh my God, do a study and, you know, inquire and, you know. No, it's actually basic. If you want to have better journalism that is really telling the full story of, let's just say, this region, you have to have that diversity in your newsroom. Mm-hmm. And then it will come. Well, actually, the bosses, whoever hire them, they have to listen to those younger, more diverse journalists and do the stories that they're saying matter, so that then they're going to bring the eyeballs that will then become the loyal consumers of the media that we do. That's the minimal first step, which I think is an important one, especially in a region like this.
Certainly, and in talking with my colleague who's also interviewing you, Johanna, she brought up, of course, creating a belonging space as well for anyone who comes into a newsroom.
So that's a very interesting concept, a space of belonging in a newsroom. I definitely feel like that's what we do at Futuro Media, which is the news organization that I created. It's a nonprofit news organization. But I think it's very interesting to have kind of like a frontal conversation about belonging in a newsroom. I'm just like, oh, that's, wow, I'm intrigued. I think it's for me, it's all about the journalism and how does it serve the journalism, because in the end, the journalism is what's being consumed by our audiences, who are the American public, who we want to have better educated and, frankly, an American public that knows how to get along with each other, mm-hmm. that does not live in fear. So that is my central goal, is the kind of journalism that we're doing and the impact that it has in the lives that we lead.
And it should go hand in hand.
It should. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Certainly not. Well, at Futuro and your whole career, you've really illuminated those underserved and underreported issues. How do you go about finding those and figuring out which ones to highlight, where to go? Well, yeah,
we have a lot of possibilities at
mm-hmm.
Futuro in terms of stories, and then we have the real life limitation, which is we have a budget, we can't go beyond the budget. So I have a story list that I'm always collecting stories. Even though I've been doing this for decades, I still am collecting stories. I'm just like, well, can I do that one? I like to keep my story list alive, because you never know when you're going to actually be able to do that particular story. How do we choose? You know, that's kind of the magic of Futuro Media and what we do, is that we have a lot of possibilities, and our team basically decides what's the great story to do, what's the great interview to do, what can wait, how do we triage? There's a story that we can't do now, we're going to have to do it next year. But a lot of that is just the secret sauce of the people that work at Futuro Media, and we trust them. Like, I trust my producers, so if it's, you know, I can't always have every single story that I want to do, so I just have to be like, okay, we won't do it now, we'll put it on the list, and I'll come back to it some other time.
Absolutely. You have to. You can't do them all at the same time, at least.
You can't do them all. But, you know, there are those stories that sit with us. For example, you know, I used to dream about coming to this part of the country, whether it's Idaho or Washington State, because it was so far away. I had not been to this region. And then I actually end up spending a bit of time reporting here in Coeur d'Alene. Mm-hmm. I was in Moscow. So I like the fact that I can have a dream and then it's like, no, and then you're going to end up and you're going to receive the Murrow Award in Washington State. What? Who would have thought? But here we are. So never give up on our dreams as journalists.
And welcome back to the Northwest.
Yes.
It's nice to have you. Looks like we really went right through some time there, so we're just going to keep on going. I do want to ask, how do you remain objective, covering some really serious topics where, morality is a pretty straight line at times. So how do you remain objective as a journalist in covering situations like immigration?
Well, so I think there's a question of being fair, and then there's a question of being objective. I don't think that there's like an objectivity God that exists that we can turn to and just be like, it would be Edward R. Murrow, right? Oh, dear Edward, is this objective? Am I on the right track with the objectivity that I perceive here and now? It doesn't exist. So what we have to do as journalists is to plant our feet firmly on the ground, in fact, right, in our fact base, and then in our actual on-the-ground frontline reporting. On the question of immigration, I can definitely be fair. I think it's very important to hear multiple different points of view on the issue, but also I'm an immigrant. So it's like, well, can she be objective? It's like, no, I can be fair because as a journalist, that is my job. That is one of the things I'm trained to do. But the other thing that I have to do as a journalist is I have to be entirely honest and transparent. And because I do frontline reporting on the question of immigration, I always base it on that. So, for example, right now, there's a whole conversation about people being afraid of what's happening on the US-Mexico border. And I just got back from reporting on the US-Mexico border. And I was not afraid. Fear exists on the Mexican side of the border, where there is a human trafficking war going on because of our policies. So the fear exists, but on the Mexican side. On the US side of the border, the migrants who I saw, the migrants and refugees who I saw, were literally handing themselves over to the Border Patrol. Arms up, saying, I'm here, take all the data that you want, so that this question of, oh, they're coming in and they're sneaking in and we don't know who they are and what they're trying to do, actually, no. On the border, se están entregando, they're giving themselves over to the Border Patrol. That's a very different dynamic than what's being reported. So for me, some people might say, well, that's not objective. Maria Hinojosa doesn't sound like everybody else. And I'm like, exactly. Because I have this different experience, because of who I am, because of the fact that on the issue of immigration, which you brought up, that is the issue that I live every single day of my life. Yeah. I'm an immigrant. My husband is an immigrant. We're US citizens. So it is part of my reality. That makes me a better journalist. And it should make me, and it does, for example, at MSNBC, where I'm a contributor at Futuro Media, it makes me to be more trustworthy. Whereas other people will say, she's Mexican, she's an immigrant, therefore she's less trustworthy. And I'm like, look at all of my reporting based on fact. You're gonna see that it is fair, and it is real, and it is truthful, and it is honest, and it's based on fact.
And from a level of understanding some others cannot have.
Correct.
Keep being loud, Maria. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I love being loud, especially now that I have this award. I mean, honestly, it's, I'm in the middle of a battle with the Texas Department of Corrections today. Right now, they're trying to ban me from visiting somebody who we've been reporting on since 2017. So yesterday, when I was first in the battle, I dropped the Pulitzer. But tomorrow, when I continue the battle, it'll be like, and by the way, I didn't answer your email because I was receiving my Edward R. Murrow Lifetime Achievement Award from Murrow College. That's why I couldn't answer your email. And I will use that as a way of saying, how more trustworthy do I need to be? Right. That you, the Texas Department of Corrections, is going to ban me from visiting somebody who we're reporting about. So they just found themselves a problem.
On that note, what should every young journalist know?
Every young journalist should know that this is not easy. It's not an easy career, right? It's a career that you have to understand the mission. Why are you doing this? What's that really about? What is that hunger? You need to really harness that. That is your passion. And you need to turn to it often, because as journalists, we're going to get told no a lot. I ended up winning a Pulitzer for my podcast called Suave. But before Suave became a podcast, there were people in my own company who were telling me, no, that's not a story. Suave is not he's never going to get out. It's not a story. So we have to face the no's and know how to respond to that. So as young journalists, you can't lose it because you weren't able to do that story, or because you had a bad encounter with your editor or your general manager or your editor-in-chief, etc. You can't lose it. You've got to pick yourself up, find the people who support you in this, whether it's a partner, best friend, the gym partner that you have. What you need to have your support system that is going to help you, that you can turn to when you get frustrated, because you're going to be frustrated. But as long as you go into it with your eyes wide open and know that if you understand why you're doing this, the doors will open, the passion will be felt, and you will get a job. So that's why you keep doing this. It's historical work what we're doing as journalists, and what you as young journalists are doing. It's historical work. We not only cover history, but we are making history, and we are determining in many ways what the future looks like as part of the historical arc of our work. So don't give up. That's been my big message to all the students. Just don't give up. Whatever you do, don't give up. Make sure you've got a little backup plan, something, if something goes a little haywire, you've got something to depend on. I always was going to fall back on the fact that I knew how to wait tables. Seriously, I was like, I'll just wait tables. But don't give up, because we need you as American journalists.
Same, I can do news and make coffee. Well, thank you, Maria. One final question. So it takes tenacity, of course. You know what else does? I'll get to the point. We have a fund drive coming up. What would you say to our Northwest Public Broadcasting audiences about NWPB?
So, to me, there's a reason why most of my career has taken place in public media. Mm-hmm. It's because of how profoundly I believe in the role of public media. Mm-hmm. Is public media perfect? No. In fact, that's why you should contribute, is because we want your voices heard. We want everyone contributing, and because I run my own nonprofit, right? It's not about the amount. It's not about, oh my God, I've got to send $500. That's a lot of money. But even if you send $2 or $3 or $5, if you send that every month, that's huge. We're looking for connection with you as our audience. And by becoming a donor, we now have a relationship, right? We have a very important relationship. You're part of what makes this all possible. So I put it back on the viewers and the listeners, right, to say, so now you have a responsibility, not only just to donate, hopefully on a monthly basis, hopefully as well to Futuro Media, but then you remain in contact, have the dialogue, let people know what you think, write that email, make the phone call, because we're listening. We really are listening to you as the listener and as a viewer. So it's a very important two-way street. And also, I just love I'm a monthly contributor to several public media organizations as well as to Futuro. And I just love when I get that little email every month. It's like, thank you for your contribution. I was like, and I didn't have to do anything, because it's already set up, it's planned, and it's just a simple way for us to be donors. But for the receiving end, it's a way of knowing that we've got that monthly donor that we can count on. So, for your role, manden dinero, colaboren.
Thank you so much, and I'm truly honored for the connection of this interview. Thank you, Maria.
My pleasure. So thankful to be here.